Hey everyone, today we're going to be doing a review of something, again, very different than anything I've ever featured on the channel. First of all, a revolver. Second of all, a single action revolver at that. So this is my Cimarron, made by Uberti, single action army clone, or 1873 style revolver in 45 Colt. Now, I've actually had this thing for quite a while. It's something that I kind of shoot every now and then just to keep things new and fresh. However, at this point, I have a couple hundred rounds through it, just 100 today alone through this thing. And I finally feel like I am in a position where I can talk about this. Now, if you're coming to this video looking to know about how this will perform in cowboy action or how it compares to some of the other like Italian clones of early kind of frontier guns out there, this is not going to be the best video for that. I have no experience with cowboy action shooting. I have no experience shooting any of the other single action army clones or anything like that. So please understand that the context for this video is more as just your average firearms enthusiast or collector, and my thoughts on this specific pistol in that vacuum. So if that's what you're looking for, again, this isn't the video, but if you are just interested in my thoughts on this pistol, please stick around. So first of all, why? Why would I delve into something so different from what I typically feature on the channel, being like serious defensive firearms, whether that be rifles or handguns? And really a lot of it is just, they seem like a lot of fun. I'm a big fan of like the old Clint Eastwood spaghetti westerns, Fistful of Dollars, Few Dollars More, Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. I'm into other like cowboy films like Tombstone, although I understand that it is not very historically accurate. But I just love the aesthetic. I love the cowboy drip, and I figured I should probably get into one of these. We had one that came in used that was in excellent shape. Picked it up myself, and I've been shooting it and enjoying it ever since. And you know, that's one of the things that I'll probably be harping on throughout this video, is that this is just a lot of fun. It's something different than what a lot of us who are more tactically minded kind of expose ourselves to, but it's something that I don't think we should ignore, especially because it helps keeps the joy in the relationship, shall we say, when it comes to the approach to firearms. So let's do a quick overview of what this pistol is. We'll talk about my experience more in depth with this pistol and how it's performed over the couple hundred rounds. But let's cut in some action shots of this thing in use, and then we'll dive a little bit deeper. So that is. So if you're familiar with these style of revolvers, none of this is going to be particularly inspiring. This is going to be pretty standard fare as far as this stuff goes. We've got just a standard blade front sight. There's no paint, there's no tritium, there's nothing crazy going on there. Just a single blade front sight. Perfectly serviceable for what this style of revolver is designed to do, and as far as I'm aware, it's not anachronistic or anything like that. Now, one of the most iconic pieces of a revolver like this is going to be this item here. This is actually your ejector rod. So when I have the load gate open and the pistol in half cock, any spent shells, this will actually allow me to force them out of the revolver one at a time. Again, if you're not familiar with single action revolvers, we'll touch more on how that action works here in a minute. But your ejector rod here is what's going to actually allow you to unload the pistol once you are done firing, or if you needed to get empty cases out, or even stock live cases out for whatever reason. Moving back underneath here, I'm going to keep this pointed in a safe direction, so we're going to run upside down here. This little rod is what holds the cylinder in place. So again, if I open up the loading gate, we'll put that in half cock. There's going to be a little button here just aft of that, and then there's that little rod there. If I depress that button and I pull out that rod, that will allow me to actually roll the cylinder out of the revolver so that I can do cleaning, maintenance, or anything else like that. Now, I know there's going to be people who say, well, can't you just have a second loaded cylinder and be able to change it like that? I know there are people that may do something like that, so I'm not going to say that that's impossible to do. However, I can say with some level of confidence that that would definitely be anachronistic, i.e. not something that Cowboys would have done back in the day. First of all, cylinders have to be fit to the gun. It's not something I can just grab another 1873 style revolver and drop its cylinder into this one. Everything has to be fit and timed together, so not very likely. And then also, speed reloads weren't exactly a thing back in the day, so wasn't something people were necessarily worried about. And compared to what predated these, i.e. cap and ball revolvers, this is still like lightning fast in comparison, having to load them singly and then unload them singly, one at a time. So not really something you would see people doing, and not really something you see many people doing today at that. Now, on top here, we'll have just a very narrow trough. Let me see if I can brighten things up here a little bit, make it easier for you to see. I'll also be rolling in some photos, but we have just a really shallow trough here, and that goes into your rear sight. So not much of a rear sight there, and it's also something you cannot see with the hammer forward. So if I try to get a sight picture, I'm immediately notified that there's something I have to do to prepare this pistol. Almost similar to like the Mauser style flag safety, where when that safety's on, it's like right in your line of sight, and I know that there's something that has to be done in order to allow me to fire this pistol. Now, as the single action again implies in the single action revolver, the hammer must be cocked in order to get the firearm to fire. If I were to just pull on the trigger, nothing is going to happen. Unlike a double action revolver, actually let me grab a visual aid here. So this is a Smith & Wesson Model 586. This is a double action, single action revolver. So I can just pull the trigger and that will cycle the cylinder around and cock the hammer at the same time. I can also manually cock the hammer and pull the trigger. And if you watch the trigger as I cock the hammer, it'll slide back slightly, again, allowing me to fire it. On a single action revolver, I have to manually cock it back before the trigger will operate. Now, in order to actually load the pistol, I have to have it in half cock. So as I cock back the pistol, you should hear a couple clicks, and I know on the original Colts it'd be 4 clicks, the C-O-L-T. On these reproductions, that's usually not the case. So the first click is going to be in my half-cock position. You could see the cylinder roll slightly. Now I can open this up. Now, by the cylinder rolling slightly, that perfectly presents one of the chambers for me to be able to load. So I would load one. Typically, even though it's a 6-cylinder gun, I would only load 5 rounds. So I would load one, skip one, then load 4. That way, once it came all the way back around, I would have a unloaded chamber for the hammer to rest on. Because if you look at the hammer here, hopefully you'll see that there's actually a spur on there as a firing pin. And that firing pin could potentially cause the gun to fire if something were to jostle it or bang it. Obviously, that's not a desirable thing. So you would want it resting on an empty chamber. So you would, again, only have 5 rounds in the gun. So again, nothing will happen here as I just pull the trigger, but if I cock the hammer back, it'll actually fire. Now, going back into the grips, there's various grip styles you'll see on single action Army clones. This is your more traditional Bisley style grip, so it's kind of horned out. There are also bird's head grips, which kind of wrap around like your bar keep style, but this is your more traditional style, at least that you're going to see most of the time today. The receiver on this one, or the frame I should say, is a nice color case hardened. Sometimes you'll see brass frames. You'll see different variations. Sometimes you'll just see a basic blued, but I think the color case hardening just looks really nice on these old revolvers, or old style revolvers, I should say, because this is a new production pistol. So what has my experience been with this Uberti? So again, it's just been something I've been having a lot of fun with. It was my first real dive into shooting a single action revolver and really shooting more than a couple cylinders worth of any revolver out there. And this thing was just a ton of fun. Now, it hasn't been all sunshines and ponies. There have been a couple issues that I've run across, mainly being the screws, especially on this side of the frame here, working their way loose as I shoot. Now, it hasn't been an issue recently because once I identified that as an issue, threw just a little bit of blue Loctite on there just to keep from walking loose themselves, but also not prevent me from getting them out easily. But once I did that, these screws have not been a problem whatsoever. Now, I did have, and actually it was today, so I'll probably be able to roll in some footage. I did have a situation where my cylinder was kind of locking up. Now, that's never happened with factory ammo, and I've shot a couple hundred rounds of factory ammo through this. However, all but the last 5 rounds that I shot today were my own hand loads. Part of that being that 45 Colt is exceptionally hard to get a hold of right now. And so I don't know if there was something going on with just the rims or something like that from being previously fired that was causing it to hang up, but I did have a couple issues where the cylinder didn't want to rotate easily. I was able to force it, but it wasn't something happening easily. But other than that, and again, at least shooting factory ammo, I have had no issues with this revolver. And again, it's just been a lot of fun. It is also fairly accurate. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll in, well, while I'm talking, I'll roll in some footage of me shooting at about 10 yards a little bit ago. Now for this, those are the last 5 rounds I shot through it. It was some factory, just basic Remington lead round nose stuff, nothing special. And at 10 yards, my first shot, at least from what I could tell, was a little bit on the right side of my point of aim. However, the next 4 shots were in this really nice cluster off on the other side. So I don't know if that first shot was just me or what, but pretty dang impressive for something like this, shooting really basic lead round nose stuff. So not going to complain about that there. And as you'll see, plenty of footage of me shooting along this plate rack. I got a plate rack here at 12 yards. That thing, this was just making quick and easy work on, as long as I was doing my part, which shooting single-handed, which is typically what I've been doing with this because it just seems right as a Cowboy revolver. Once you kind of get your technique down, this thing will definitely do it no problem. Now, as far as other things that I've had fun with this is, you just can't have one of these and not attempt to fan the hammer. So for what that, for people who might not be familiar with, these can basically slam fire, I guess would be another word for it. So if you hold the trigger down, you can cock the hammer and release it, and it'll fire every time you do that. I'll roll in some footage of me doing that as well. You're not going to hit anything, and thankfully I have a very safe environment here where I've got a very large dirt berm in front of a very large hill. So it mitigates any risk of me sending one over the berm, for example. Not something I would recommend unless you're in a safe area like this, because you really have no semblance of being able to aim properly with this. But again, it harkens back to Clint Eastwood and some of those old movies. So it's something I couldn't have this revolver and not try to do myself. So overall, I am really, really happy with this Uberti. These things are honestly fairly affordable, usually around $500 or less for a more basic version. They also have some fancier versions out there. You can also get these in calibers like .357 Magnum. So if you want to be able to shoot .38 Special, you can do that. I just wanted to go with 45 Colt because that's just what seemed appropriate for something like this. And I've just, again, had a lot of fun with it. If you're kind of getting to the place where you're kind of stagnating or kind of losing the desire to go out and shoot because everything feels a bit the same, I think it would be worth trying something a little bit different. You know, that's where I got into the lever guns and all that stuff, as well as I just wasn't stagnating, but it was just going to the range was kind of losing its charm, and having something different to shoot was a lot of fun. And I will also say, being able to handle, especially doing single-handed shooting with something like this, with very rudimentary sights will also make you very honest, especially when you only have 5 shots on board to get the job done. Now, I know there are going to be people who will use something like this in a cowboy action shoot. Honestly, I have next to no desire to do cowboy action shooting myself, but more power to the people who do. But I do just enjoy shooting these style guns, and if we could do a more modern style match with old guns, I would be totally on board once I get a matching rifle for something like this. But that's something I'll eventually work on. 1873 rifles are crazy expensive, at least all the new ones, and well, and old ones for that matter. So not sure the viability of something like that, but something I may try to do in the future. So again, if you are looking for a fun revolver to get out and have some fun with, I really think that this is a good place to start, especially in 45 Colt. The recoil is very, very mild. The hand loads I was shooting with just cast lead semi-wad cutters were very, very tame, as you'll see. And again, it's just something to keep things fresh. And I can honestly say I've had a lot of people shoot this gun. Every single person that has shot this has finished with a giant smile on their face. And, you know, that's guys. And I think I've probably got footage of people in like full helmets with nods and everything shooting one of these. And again, it's just a good time. It's just a way to have fun. And again, do so at a very reasonable price, in my opinion. So if you have any recommendations for other stuff like this you'd like to see on the channel, definitely throw that down below. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, throw that in the comment section down below as well. I'll try to get back to you as quick as I can. I may not respond to everything, but I do read everything at least. And I also want to say thanks to my patrons for helping to make a video like this one happen. This was all paid for by me and by the funds over on Patreon, especially the ammo and everything else to keep this thing running for a couple hundred rounds. So because of that, I post all my content over there early. We do some exclusive content. We have live streams. We have a Discord server. We have all that stuff. So if any of that stuff sounds interesting, or you just want to financially support the channel, definitely check out the links down below. But as always, I hope you got something out of this video, and I really appreciate you watching. I also have to say, my friend that made me this holster doesn't want me to advertise that he makes leather holsters, but he did a phenomenal job on this one. Like, I get an actual click out of this. Like, let me hold it closer to the mic so you can hear. Like, it actually clicks in place. So I actually have really good retention with this holster as far as a loose leather holster goes. I've seen Kydex holsters with far worse retention. So I just love having a nice leather holster to go with a revolver like this one.